Does that make sense? Now we can start a new journey. But you have two paths you can take. Well, from that place of acknowledgement, right? You have two paths you can take, right? You can go in the direction of guilt, or you can go in the direction of a harder option. It's very easy to feel guilty. Okay, it's very easy to for someone that you betrayed to make you feel guilty, especially if you're trying to fix it, right? So now let's go in the direction of guilt. If you go this right here is not a good thing. Okay, if you go in the direction of guilt, it might look good to a person who's been on the receiving end of cheating. They might be like, yeah, you should feel guilty. Well, they don't want you if you feel guilty, or everything that guilt represents. If you start acting that way that you're guilty, they're never gonna want you. It might feel good to them short term because you feel guilty. You're trying to do everything right. Now we're dealing with overcompensation. But before we get into overcompensation, let me break down guilt. Right now, you move from I committed a damaging act, right? You admitted that, you acknowledge that, right? Now you're moving to I am now the damaging person in every situation. You're now in every conversation, in everything, you're now acting as though you're not good enough, right? Whereas you're still there, they're still here, right? So you're living in a very toxic environment, and you are helping to create the toxic environment. Right now, we can't jump all the way to everything is fixed. That would be an unrealistic expectation as well, right? That's going to be a process. Anything again, like I just said, if you're going to rebuild, it's going to take some time. You have to be patient. You have to be generous with patience. You have to give yourself patience, right? All of that, right? But guilt is the easy route to go. Your natural brain, if you are desperately trying to fix the situation, your natural brain will go in the direction of guilt, and then you begin to interpret every disagreement through the offense. They just disagreed with something simple, right? But now you're thinking it's because of what you did. So now you operate from that place. It's toxic. Even when the present issue is not related, right? Again, the intentions are good. You want to fix the damages you created. But now you're assuming that every forfeited right that you've had is been forfeited, right? Every right that you have now, before and ever before, is being forfeited. That's what I meant to say. So you start to question yourself. Even when you actually disagree with anything, you question if the disagreement is real, or should you move forward, or is it going to be accepted. You lose yourself in that process. And guess what? The person you're trying to overcompensate with, they don't find that attractive. Just in case you didn't know, they might not be able to say, they might be hurt, where they have short-term feelings where it feels good that you're trying to fix it. But you know, one of the many reasons why many of them struggle to forgive you is because it's almost that they could never get your confident self back again. Everything that you do, they view it from the lens of you offended them, because you keep reminding them with your overcompensation behaviors. You try to prove through increased like things you would normally do, right? You overly do it, right? You start increasing the gift, you start buying gifts, and there's nothing wrong with buying gifts. That's not what I'm saying. But you know what I'm talking about. When you start to, every opportunity, you just want to compensate for the bad behavior that you did sometimes years ago, right? You're always available, even when you know it's not really conducive. It's not what's the word I'm looking for? It's not a fit. Maybe you're not available. You have to travel. You have to go get some business or something like that. But now you can't, And on top of that, you're always, before anything happens, I'm sorry. You're apologizing even when you did nothing wrong, or worse, when you haven't identified what you did wrong. But again, you think because you did something wrong 3, 4, 5 years ago, you're always thinking that, well, everything I do now must be wrong. Excessive transparency. Yes, I said it. Excessive transparency. Some things are just yours personally, as an individual. But no, you want to reveal everything, and you're completely disconnected from the impact in the overall health of your relationship, right? You continue to do favors, you continue to spend money that you, the word I was looking for is feasible. Even when you know that something is not feasible, you try to fit it in to overcompensate for your bad behavior years ago. You have a hard time forgiving yourself. So they cannot forgive you if you cannot give yourself forgiveness. Okay? So, you're trying to change. Yes, you're trying to do better, but you're being excessively dramatic in demonstrating that change. And your behavior, again, short term will appear generous. It looks like, they might enjoy it just for a little while, but eventually the person you betrayed also needs to get that confident person back. And it's easier said than done. I understand why you feel the need to overcompensate, but let's consider the fact that it's actually creating the opposite impact, the opposite direction, right? So now you find yourself, when you overcompensate, you find yourself in a place of submission. What do I mean by submission? Well, some of you might say, well, submission is a good thing. Well, not absolutely, right? Obviously, that word now carries different meanings. For some people, it's subjugation. For some people, it just means you trust the context you're in. So of course you submit. We all submit anyway. When we trust, when we feel safe and secure, we naturally submit. That's not the submission I'm talking about. I'm talking about when you stop participating as an equal adult in life with the person you're married to, right? Everything is, you yield to them for everything, even when you know that you might have a little bit of disagreement, and they can smell it. They know when you're faking it, right? You agree with statements that you don't really believe in. You don't believe it, but you're just going to agree. Why? Because you keep reflecting back to, well, I have to pay. Well, you don't say it out in words, but your actions basically say you have to pay with the rest of your life. Sometimes you tolerate outright disrespect. So what should I do then? Like, what should you do? Well, first of all, don't abandon your important responsibilities as an adult, right? You shouldn't, right? That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about just human interaction between two people, right? Again, let's be clear. What you did was bad. You shouldn't have. You got burnt. Okay. At what point do we move on? Now, you don't have the right to go tell the person you betrayed to just move on. You have no right. What I'm asking you is not saying it, is to actually act like you're still an adult, right? It's easier said than done. And if you start interpreting every move they make as a payback for what you did, as just looking at them and just say, hey, that's another adult who felt betrayed by you, yes, but they're also going to make decisions. And even if they make decisions to leave the marriage, and can you handle that? If you can't handle that, maybe that's the reason why you're operating the way you're operating, from a place of guilt. You're poisoning the relationship that is still in front of you, because you're still in the relationship, but you're poisoning it because you're being paranoid. All right. So yes, you're humbled. Okay, obviously, because you regret what you did, but regret doesn't mean you deserve a healthy relationship. You have to have game. You have to know what you're doing. Does that make sense? And that means you understand between short-term impact and long-term impact of your behavior, regardless of what reasons you come up with for why you do them or your excuses. All right. So if you're always afraid, you don't know what you're when you're operating from a place of fear, you're going to create more resistance. Okay. You're going to create more. If every resistance you get is interpreted as not sufficient, right? Like you just look, okay, it's not enough. I need to do more. I need to do more. I need to. You're operating from a place of panic mode and fear mode, and of course, you're not going to build attraction from that place. Okay. So now we're dealing with, again, you're submitting as to be under the other person, right? And that person does not want that. They want a person of value. The person you betrayed still wants somebody who has value, somebody who still know they have value, somebody who is confident in their own self-respect. They have self-respect. They still love themselves, and no, they're not going to sacrifice themselves because they got caught up in a very bad extremely bad, regrettable moment. They still want the person who can actually move on from there, and they still want you to understand that if it takes them a process